Cool. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, I keep getting this yellow light thing come through the skylight, and I believe it's the sun.
That's a first.
And then the Christmas lights, they're not Christmas lights, they're just ambience lights that make you feel a lot warmer than it actually is. So I'll just put that.
There we are. Shows my ignorance.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? I've just had a message pop up saying unmute me, but I'm assuming you can all hear me.
Yeah, loud and clear, Pete. Loud and clear.
Cool. Okay, so start with a quick thanks for having me for today. I haven't been here on these meetings for a long time, so I plan to do a lot more during 2023 and go forward with joining on these calls. They're really useful, and so far so good. So yeah, quick introduction on what I'm going to talk about today. Really, it's really around enabling SMEs to improve their cybersecurity posture through managed services. So we're going to look at a couple of challenges, and there are many, and many not even to do with cybersecurity, but within a small company environment, there's lots and lots of challenges, and cyber being one of the main problems that we deal with every day. We've got lots of clients that come to us with lots of issues around this, and generally speaking, they're stuck in a sort of situation where they don't really know where to turn. Do they do in-house cost of consultants, etc., or do they turn to managed services, which where we can slot in there? So there's lots of benefits versus cost conversations. So about us, we're Securious. I'm CEO and co-founder of Securious. We're a cyber security organisation based in Exeter Science Park at the George Parker Bidder Building, which houses our Security Operations Centre. We specialise in governance, risk, compliance, penetration testing, and our core delivery is managed detect response. I'm over 20 years old, obviously. I'm 20 years plus industrial experience. I'm a full member of the Chartered Institute of Information Security. I'm a PCI QSA consultant, so we're authorised to assess against payment card industry standards and data security standards. A qualified ethical hacker, and also co-founded the Southwest Cybersecurity Cluster, in case you didn't know. And a useful piece of information, an unknown fact about me: I used to fix tornado jet aircraft in the Royal Air Force many moons ago. So I'm ex-engineer and analytical mindset from years gone by. But we're not here to talk about that today. I've got 15 minutes or so to talk about how we fix the SME challenges, which is if we're going to do that, I'll be a millionaire. So yeah. How do we implement good cyber security posture through managed services? So we hear a lot of problems, a lot of issues all the time. SMEs generally have, and I'm not typecasting every SME into here. Obviously, there's some really well-to-do SMEs. This is just generally speaking, small organisations generally have a fixed budget or very small budget to actually ascertain their cybersecurity skills. Another thing they don't have generally is in-house skill sets to deal with the evolving problems that we're seeing a lot of nowadays, ransomware attacks and phishing email attacks and things. And also they don't really know where to look to get extra help. And there's a lot of organizations out there, managed service solutions out there, and they're not really sure exactly how to select those vendors. And quite often we see their SMEs are really driven to action for either a compliance need or more seriously a data breach. So following a data breach, they're all over managed services to try and help fix them. If they're not, then that can lead to ad hoc self-fixing their cyber issues, and that could lead to quite often lead to inappropriate solutions, which could ultimately lead to more vulnerable to cyber threats, depending on how they fix their issues. We saw a lot of quick fixes when COVID struck. Everyone working from home. There's remote access onto servers and things. There's a lot of issues were drawn out from the pandemic when people just had to get from home and work remotely. So there's a lot of temporary solutions put in, and we're still seeing a couple of years later where those temporary solutions are still the main solution. So we've got all sorts of extra risk involved and vulnerability footprints that are opened up since pandemic. So just going to look at 3 common things we see in here and talk to organizations about. So, and one of the main key drivers for most organizations is they can't increase their cyber posture, particularly they're up against financial constraints. And there's always a conversation around cost versus the risk. So how can we deal with that? Using a managed service provider can potentially increase the cost to the organization. Certainly if they've got no budget, it's going to increase the cost. But it can also it can actually reduce a couple of it can reduce your exposure to cyber risk, but it depends on a number of factors and how you align to managed service. And a couple of things we see, is the managed service provider improving your cybersecurity posture, or is it just trying to sell you services that aren't actually needed? We see many a case where new firewalls are actually installed when actually their existing firewalls only need a reconfiguration for it to work in a more better way. So there's a lot of that goes on. Another question we hear a lot is how can we attract and employ cybersecurity experts? And some of the key questions there: would they actually want to work with us, let alone stay with us? So we have the in-house expertise versus the outsourced expert questions. Buying in an expert obviously can cost, and generally speaking, depending on the level of expertise, they can the cost of a consultant can be quite challenging to SMEs. And then they've got the next question then is really, how do you retain that member of staff or members of staff? Good consultants are pretty hard to come by, and some of them may not want to be involved with small organisations because it's not very good for their career progression. And I think we've seen the current state of the market is quite a challenge at the best of times. So we've got this sort of almost perfect storm sitting there with the SME industries there. And also the third point really around SMEs is how can they focus on their core deliveries when they're dealing with all these external cyber threats, and how do they concentrate on their internal team and build and sell their product that they're good at doing? So again, outsourcing to a service provider will free them up to not having to deal with the cyber threats, and obviously keep their focus on delivering their core products. And also, we've got to remember that cyber incidents are very time-consuming and can be quite costly to fix and manage. So how do we see it? Well, we see it as it's a challenge, but it's not all doom and gloom. As a service provider ourselves, we don't see that there's a silver bullet, a single cybersecurity fix that's going to resolve all these issues. In fact, we see it's quite the opposite. I think we have to work closely with a high level of trust. There's a lot of trust based around managed services, but we develop many of our partnerships as we do now into sort of layered security services that wrap around the title of a managed service provider or managed service security service provider. So we see that you can drastically reduce the cost of employing specialist cybersecurity staff while reducing your cyber risk in the meantime. Reducing cost and offset risks of third-party provider, knowing that it will improve your security posture, take responsibility of your routine tasks such as patch management, firewall administration. They'll keep your business informed of latest threats and identify protective measures you may need to put in place. But this is all built around a trust-based relationship, and you have to trust your managed service provider and really dig into the detail of what they're actually providing for you, whether it's appropriate and whether it's at the price point that you can manage. But at the end of the day, we're the experts sitting in the centre of the cybersecurity landscape. We advise, we can consult, we can fix cyber issues, we can do incident response, all these sort of things that would not necessarily take up a small amount of time for an SME. So yeah, we can offer phishing simulation, incident management plans, staff awareness, security training, and there's many more services that managed services providers can actually offer you the SME. And that leads you to outsource your services to a managed service provider means you can get on with your core business, and knowing that you've got one, albeit very serious, business risk taken care of. So a little bit about us, really. We've got a great team of cyber security experts. We help support organisations really keep their business secure from external and internal threats. But one of our key factors really is we believe that unless you know and have full visibility of your internal environment, your IT estate, etc., you can't really fix any of the problems because you can't actually see what the problems are. There might be some obvious problems with training, example, but if you have no idea that your web server's been attacked 3 o'clock in the morning every single morning, and you're blindly spending time and effort and money, etc., on email security training for your staff, that's, to us, that seems quite a wasted output for you. You could also be pen testing your perimeter router, for example, when there's an insider threat, exfiltering data, company data every Saturday morning. So until you have full visibility of what's actually happening within your environment and what's, what is the data traversing through your environment and your IT estate, then you won't really know where to concentrate your efforts and start spending some time and effort to fix those problems. So how we do it, well, manage, detect, response is our core service. It picks up on all activities of your environment, whether it's on-premise, cloud, hybrid-based. We collate and centralize all your system user activity logs, alerting to unknown threats, threat hunting, and we do threat intelligence services as well. We operate that out of a security operations center 24/7. We would deploy collector agents into your environment that would start populating and monitoring a simple single pane web portal for you. Gives you a view on all activity within your estate. It'd be things like failed user account, logins, logins to the firewalls perhaps, failed attempts at VPN connections, servers restarting. There's a whole raft of logs and activity we can pick up and collate. And the analysis of this would then make it very easy to detect whether there's suspicious activity or perhaps legitimate activity. Excuse me, not all of our logs can demonstrate malicious activity. If you've got users logging in and failed logins a lot for your users, then that might lead to a bit of staff training on how to log in or how to set up your multi-factor authentication, for example. So there's some, there's other benefits of doing it as well. But this, over a period of time, builds up a really big picture and a really clear view of what's actually happening on your environment and how that visibility is quite key to understanding where your threats are actually being populated. So in summary, a very quick talk, but in summary, there's obviously many threats out there. They're constantly evolving. Tarquin mentioned some of the big risks and sort of threats that are emerging, and they're constant. Even recently, you've got the I think I read today that the Royal Mail is being put down to a Russian threat actor. So there's a lot of activity going on, and it's showing no sign of any let-up. SMEs, outsourcing your cybersecurity to a trusted managed service provider should not be overlooked. I think there's some good providers out there. There's some good teams working within this space, and there's some really good knowledge out there. It can be seen as risk mitigation. We've had organisations that are looking to reinsure their organisations, and part of that risk mitigation, if you like, is to reduce the cost of insurance, cyber insurance, is to implement things like MDR, SIEM, etc. So there are benefits of doing that as well in terms of bringing that cost down. But the ultimate aim of using a managed service is to enable and enhance you to get on with your day job and sell your widgets and do whatever you need to do and continue your business's usual activities whilst you've got the trust of a security partner looking after the cyber risk for you. That's about it, really.